"You've got 30 days to leave the property," snapped the head of the neighborhood council, her words heavy with menace. The rest of the committee sat behind her, wearing smug, self-satisfied grins. My chest tightened. I looked at the people who had made our lives unbearable for months. They thought they'd forced another family out, just because we didn't blindly follow their rules. But then, the door to the meeting room burst open. Head swiveled. My wife stepped in. Dressed in her sharp, deep blue uniform, every button and badge perfectly in place, she looked like command itself had walked into the room. The smirks melted from their faces. "Sorry for the delay," she said coolly, her voice crisp and firm, like someone who gives orders for a living. "But before we talk about your plan to throw out my family while I'm on active duty, let's take a moment to review which federal protections you're prepared to break tonight." The committee leader's face drained of color. It hadn't always been this way. "My name's Alex, I work in cybersecurity. My wife, Lena, is a lieutenant in the Coast Guard. After years of saving and sacrificing, we finally bought what we thought would be our forever home, a cozy brick house in Pinebrook Ridge, a suburb with good schools, clean streets, and a friendly reputation. The neighborhood rules seemed strict but manageable. The real estate agent said the homeowners group, the Pinebrook Council, just made sure everyone followed the same standards. The dues were high, but supposedly included landscaping, a private playground, and snow removal. We were all in. Lena was stationed nearby on base, and the kids were finally enrolled in stable schools. At first, things were great. We painted the house in an approved shade of beige. Installed a mailbox from their Suggested Styles catalog. Joined the Weekend Watch Patrol. We followed every guideline. Every single one. Then Lena got orders. A 5-month deployment out west. Just 2 weeks after she left, I came home to a neon green notice stuck to our door. Violation, grass too long. I trimmed it that same evening. The next day? Another warning. Our recycling bin hadn't been brought in within 4 hours. The pattern began, every few days, a new complaint. The kids' basketball hoop, approved months earlier, was now unsafe. The U.S. flag on our porch? Labeled as incorrectly mounted. Even the flower bed Lena planted before she left was now flagged as non-compliant landscaping. I tried reasoning with the council's leader, Linda, a woman who looked like she ironed her face every morning. "I'm doing my best," I told her. "My wife's deployed, and I'm handling everything solo." She gave a cold, robotic smile. "Regulations are regulations. There are no exceptions." But I started noticing something odd. Other houses had the same setups, flags, basketball hoops, even the same exact flowers. No notices. No complaints. Then came a certified letter. The council was fining us $100 a day. The list of so-called violations was absurd. Too much foot traffic, kids playing in their own yard. Unauthorized vehicle, my father-in-law's pickup, parked during a weekend visit. Non-standard window coverings, my daughter's blackout curtains. Within a month, they said we owed $2,300. I sent in pictures of other houses with identical setups. I wrote rebuttals for each violation. Nothing. No explanation. Just rejection. Then it escalated. Another letter came. Due to our hostile attitude and continued disruptions, they were taking legal steps to put a lien on our home. They wanted to force us to sell. I was speechless. This wasn't just harassment. They were trying to take the house we worked our whole lives for. The house we dumped every penny into. The one place our kids finally felt grounded after 3 moves. I was barely holding it together. I wasn't eating. Sleep was a memory. I kept telling myself I could keep up with the violations, that I just had to stay ahead. I even hired a landscaping company. Removed the basketball hoop. Repainted the trim. Submitted time-stamped photos. So, they kept coming. At one HOA meeting, I tried to speak up. Linda cut me off after 40 seconds. "You've had your say," she snapped. Meanwhile, other residents rambled for 5 minutes each. Later, in the parking lot, I overheard a board member, Ted, say, "Military families just don't fit in here. Always moving. No real investment." That's when I called Paul, a neighbor who'd lived in Pinebrook for over a decade. "You're not the first," he whispered. "They've done this to other families they didn't like. Hit them with violations until they give up and move." I knew then we had to fight back. 3 days later, another envelope showed up, a formal eviction notice from the council. They claimed our violations now totaled $3,350 and said we had 30 days to vacate or face legal proceedings. They'd scheduled a final vote on the matter, conveniently, while Lena was still deployed. That night I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I dove headfirst into research. Hours later, bleary-eyed and desperate, I found it, the Service Members Civil Protections Act. A federal law protecting active duty military members from eviction, foreclosure, and legal actions while deployed. What they were doing wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. I dug deeper, took photos of violations across the neighborhood, including Linda's own lawn gnome and custom mailbox, both technically against the council's rules. Then I hit gold. Buried in our original contract was a clause that directly stated, no enforcement actions may be taken against families of deployed service members. I contacted Lena's legal team on base. A Navy JAG officer reviewed our case and nearly exploded. "They're doing this during her deployment? Oh, we're shutting this down." She sent a formal notice, complete with statutes, protections, and a direct warning, federal penalties, up to $110,000 per violation. Lena called the next day during a secure break. "They're trying to take our home," I told her. "I've done everything I can." There was a pause. "I'm coming home," she said. Her CO approved emergency leave. She'd land just hours before the final hearing. The night of the meeting, Lena arrived after 30 straight hours of travel. She hugged the kids, then flipped through every document I'd prepared, making her own notes as she read. "They have no clue who they're dealing with," she said, calmly zipping her dress uniform. The community center was packed. The council sat smugly at the front. Linda nodded as I entered. "You've got 5 minutes, Alex." They assumed it was over. Mid-sentence, as I laid out our side, the doors opened. Lena walked in. Full uniform. Shoulders square. Her medals catching the light. The room froze. The council members blinked in disbelief. "I'm Lieutenant Lena Rivers, U.S. Coast Guard," she said, placing her cap firmly on the table. "I've just returned from active duty to address this illegal action against my family." She laid out the law. The federal protection statutes. The clause in their own bylaws. Photos of identical violations ignored across other homes. Their silence was deafening. "The Navy's legal team is prepared to file against this council," she said. "Evicting a military family during deployment? That's a violation of federal law." The council lawyer stuttered something, then asked for a recess. They retreated behind closed doors. Neighbors came up to us, people we'd barely spoken to, apologizing. "We didn't know. We're sorry we didn't help sooner." When the council returned, the change was immediate. "All fines are dismissed," their lawyer announced. "No action will be taken. We regret any confusion." Within a week, 3 board members quit, including Linda. A county inquiry into their actions followed. Other residents came forward with similar stories. The council's behavior became a warning case for HOA abuse statewide. That was 2 years ago. Lena's since been promoted. Our kids are thriving. We still live in Pinebrook, but now with a fair, transparent council. 2 of its members are veterans. The day after that hearing, the neighborhood threw a welcome-back barbecue for Lena. "Thanks for showing us how to stand up to them," one neighbor said. "Turns out, we weren't the first military family they tried to push out. But we were the first to fight back and win." In the end, it wasn't just about weeds, trash bins, or flower beds. It was about a system that thought no one would dare to push back. A board that counted on fear, silence, and the assumption that families like ours wouldn't know their rights, let alone stand up to enforce them. But they miscalculated. Because when you try to rip apart the foundation of a military family, the home we've fought to build, protect, and provide, you awaken a level of determination most people never see coming. Lena didn't march into that meeting just as a Navy officer. She walked in as a mother, a wife, and a protector. Her uniform didn't just symbolize service to her country, it demanded respect in a room that had long lost the meaning of fairness. And in that moment, everything shifted. You could feel it. The same neighbors who'd kept their heads down for months began to speak up. People who'd been silently harassed came forward. We realized this wasn't just our battle, it was a reckoning for every family that had been pushed out before us. What followed wasn't just a victory, it was justice. The HOA board that tried to fine and bully us into submission was dismantled. Their discriminatory tactics laid bare, their resignations swift and overdue. The new board now includes people with integrity, people who know what service looks like and who understand that rules exist to maintain peace, not to weaponize against your own community. It taught us something crucial: you don't always get to pick your battles. But when one lands on your doorstep, sometimes literally, you do get to decide how you respond. We chose to stand our ground. We chose to fight with the truth, with the law, and with unwavering resolve. Not just for ourselves, but for every quiet voice that had been silenced before us. And that's the power of knowing your rights. That's the strength of refusing to be bullied. And that's the reason we're still here, raising our kids in the home we worked so hard for, in a community that finally reflects the values it claimed to uphold. So, if you're facing something similar, if you're being pushed, cornered, or quietly threatened by those who think they can twist the rules, know this: you're not powerless. You're not alone. And you don't have to back down. Because the moment you stop accepting unfair treatment as just the way it is the moment change begins. Sometimes the fight isn't easy, but when it's for your family, your future, and your dignity, it's always worth it. We didn't win because we shouted the loudest. We won because we stood on truth, law, and principle. Bullies in suits and positions of power only thrive when no one stands in their way. But when even one family says, enough, the whole dynamic shifts. The system that once seemed untouchable cracks. And what's left is accountability. Our story isn't just about survival. It's about reclaiming power, protecting what's ours, and refusing to be erased. So wherever you are, whatever you're facing, stand tall, speak clearly, and never forget, when you fight for what's right, you're never truly fighting alone.